Welcome back to this video.
Welcome back to this video. That implies you've watched this video at some stage and if you just came back to it.
Welcome back to my channel. Your channel.
This is my channel. Are you taking over my channel?
Welcome back to my channel. I'm Redstone Melon.
Wow, okay. This is a Lightfall campaign discussion. It is not a campaign review because it is not structured like a review. It is basically two people having a discussion.
Conversation.
Yes. The first thing I have noted down is story. And I have put down the Witness, Traveller, and the Veil.
I really like the entrance scene. Like, it just brought you in there. It was epic. Like, I really enjoyed it. The Witness, I feel like, it's just the right combination of mysterious and creepy.
The Witness is very creepy. Even though he's basically an anime character. But I think the fact that that is what he is, or it is, because it's like a bunch of things, I guess. In Destiny, which is very much not an anime, makes it creepy. Also just movements and everything.
It reminds me of something, but I can never really put a finger on it. Ah, the person from Ant-Man and the Wasp, or just Ant-Man, like the.
Oh, Ghost?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the movements, like the sort of like repeatiness of its, you know, the way its arm drags behind it, and it moves. That's the sort of thing you're meaning, isn't it?
Yeah.
That like ghosting effect.
Yeah, that's very cool. Mind you, this is also the very first expansion I've witnessed. Then I've only started playing Destiny in like what? August? September?
I think it was actually a wee bit earlier than that. But yeah.
I think the first time I played it was a bit earlier, but that I properly played it, I think was something like September.
Well, you started playing it during Haunted, but you only the first season was Plunder that you got. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, the opening cutscene was really, really good, but I think it kind of misled you a wee bit.
What do you mean?
In a sense. Well, because so the opening cutscene was about the Witness suddenly being at the Earth. Okay, what I'm trying to say basically is the opening cutscene was really, really good. Like, I really enjoyed it. And it was good showing, like, the Witness being there, the Traveller actually doing something for the first time in his life, basically. Aside from making a big pulse of light, which is fun twice. And then the Witness kind of going forward, seeing where Neomuna was, and then, or seeing where the Veil was, I guess, and then being like, my disciple, go. You know what must be done, or whatever. Like, that was cool, and then Osiris going after... I didn't mean to do that. Interesting. And then Osiris going after Callus. Like, that was really cool. Then us going after as well. But it kind of set you up to think this expansion was going to be about the Witness and the Traveller being very heavily focused, but instead it kind of turned into protecting Neomuna.
Yeah, but I kind of like that it threw you off, because I don't want this to be super predictable, you know?
Yeah. I think a lot of people were expecting it to be this big thing where the Witness was going to be really involved. The campaign essentially started off with the Witness attacking the Traveller and the Traveller attacking the Witness. And it gets put on hold because the Witness needs the Veil, whatever the Veil is. And then the campaign is basically us stopping the Witness from getting the Veil multiple times. Eventually it succeeds. And then whatever it was going to do at the very start has happened.
I thought that was a bit chaotic indeed. I did kind of like how it happened in the end with Ghost.
Yeah.
So that, like, we still don't know what's this plan that the Traveller expect to use Ghost. So I like that part, but I get that it was sort of a bit questionable.
One thing I do disagree with, because I've been seeing, I mean, I'm very much assuming you haven't read any people's comments about the expansion,
Not
whereas
really,
I've been
no.
seeing a lot of them. So one of people's main like gripes with the expansion is basically what's the Veil, because it's never actually elaborated on what is it.
That is something I have a bit of a problem with, I have to say.
Which a part of me is like, yeah, I get that. it is a bit annoying, but at the same time, some people are like, they never actually said in the campaign, like, we don't know what it is. It was like acted as though we were the only ones who didn't know what it was, and people were like, oh yeah, of course, like the veil's this, but they never actually said. But there's like at least one occurrence very early on in the campaign where Osiris and Nimbus and I think Rohan are all like, we don't know what this thing is, but we know what it does, and that makes it important.
But we also don't know what it does.
Yeah. Like, they basically just know it keeps the Cloud Arc alive, and the Witness wants it. And in fairness, like, if your big enemy wants something, you're gonna stop them from getting it, which is basically what the campaign was, and that ended up being detrimental to us because we actually give it the veil by just being near it because Ghost did it.
Yes, I'm missing some storyline about the veil. I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
So it felt a little bit loose. So like the third draft of a story, when what you need is like 5. What I don't quite understand is why Savathun wasn't mentioned more, because I mean she was the one who hid it there, right? What is her connection to the veil? Where is it coming from?
She was actually talked about, apparently in the raid. Nezarec says a lot about everything.
But that's so annoying. Like, you need to make the raid available for people who are like us, just like 2 people playing together or individuals playing together, and because we want to have the story.
Well, that's what they did in The Witch Queen with Preservation. There was a mission basically once the raid got completed, which takes you into the raid area, and that's where I got my lines for Rilk talking during, my cinematic edit. Because that's basically all of the lore stuff that he says in the raid, to my understanding. But you can access it via mission.
For this one?
I don't think it is, no. Because it happened right after the raid got finished for the first time, and nothing's like changed really after this. They may still add a mission in. Who knows? Maybe they're just going to wait. But they're meant to... There's going to be a mission or a quest next season, they've said, which will explain more what the veil is.
I just sort of want to know Savathun's interaction with it. When was it deposited as well?
So the whole story behind that, which is somewhat I know because of the raid and otherwise, because it's actually been said somewhere in the past. I think the Witch Queen was the big misunderstanding. Because the Witch Queen was basically us killing Savathun because Savathun is Savathun, but realistically, Savathun was trying to protect the Traveler. And for some reason she decided to fight us, and we decided to fight her because, well, she's Savathun, because of course we're going to do that. But during the first collapse, which didn't happen in game, like this is very, very old in game, there was Nezarec, and there was Savathun, and the Witness, obviously. And Nezarec lives on the pyramid on the moon. That's his pyramid ship. So during that, Savathun turned on the Witness, killed Nezarec, hid the veil on Neomuna, and then blamed everything on Nezarec. Essentially.
Sounds kind of cool.
And was like, this was his fault. I had nothing to do with it. And then in the Witch Queen, she was trying to move the Traveler into her throne world to keep it safe. Which, I mean, the Traveler, so it's not necessarily dead, but Ghost has, like, if you're wandering around Neomuna, there's dialogue of Ghost saying he doesn't feel the presence of the Traveler anymore, and he's not getting his light from the Traveler anymore. Because during when, like, whenever the game came out, the Traveler had a big cage around it, and we couldn't use our light because the Cabal, like, caged off the Traveler. But this time, even though the Traveler's not necessarily alive, we still have our powers.
What exactly does the light give us?
Well, it gives you all, like, your Arc, Solar, and your Void, and Ghost's ability to resurrect you. The only thing it doesn't give you is Stasis and Strand.
Oh.
But basically what I'm saying is, if Savathun had have actually succeeded with locking the Traveler off in the Throne World, we may not have lost our light, and therefore the Traveler actually would have been safe, and none of this fight would have occurred in this expansion because the Witness wouldn't have been able to have gotten to the Traveler. So one of the big theories is that Savathun's going to come back in one of the next seasons because she's basically on our side, kind of. Not really. But she's on the Traveler's side.
That's an interesting perspective.
Yeah, but that's kind of my thought. Like, the Witch Queen was basically us trying to kill Savathun because Savathun is a big bad person. Even though she's just been resurrected and everything, and she's technically not Savathun anymore. It's the same way Crow is Uldren, but he's not Uldren. And even Savathun, before she got resurrected, had turned on the Witness. So, I mean, you have to keep in mind Savathun actually got us an alliance with the Cabal and the Fallen. Like, without Savathun, we wouldn't have had Mithrax or Keitel.
I wouldn't know about that.
Yep, but that was all because of whenever she was Osiris. Anyway, we're deviating very heavily here.
We're deviating way too heavy. My thing with Strand is, I mean, I like the story around it. I think sometimes it felt a bit rough. But in general, I liked it. I just don't like Strand in itself. Like I said that a couple of times, but it just doesn't feel natural. I mean, Destiny is the first shooter I've played and stuff. But I feel like, you know, I got into Arc at first, and now I love Solar. But those things just kind of came to me. And fairly straightforward. And Strand, I constantly kill myself. Like, constantly. No matter what I do with Strand, I just die. That's just something I don't like about it. And, I love the idea of grapple, but I think it's too fiddly. And that sometimes you try to get one of those grapple points and you miss it by just the tiniest bit, and then you just drop because you don't have grapple.
Yeah, I've had it create a grapple point right beside the grapple point. And then you don't have your grapple afterwards. It can be annoying. I think that's something where there's a difference between me and you, because I've gotten quite used to the grapple already, but I think that's because of my experience.
You're also better with jumping. Like, jumping is my biggest problem in Destiny.
Yeah, well, you are Warlock as well. Like, with Hunters, it's just like, you have your double or triple jump. Whereas with the Warlock, you float. And you have to start with a vertical momentum, otherwise you'll just glide down. Like, that's the thing, whenever I do a grapple, like, I can jump off of this ledge, and it doesn't matter how far down I go, I can just do a triple jump and get back. Whereas if you start falling, you're dead. Like, you're done.
It's something I don't like about the Warlock, but it's so superior in everything else that I don't care.
But that's the thing, like, Hunters are mobility, which makes the grapple work really well. And even Titans have a wee bit of a lift. Like, Titans jumps are similar to Warlocks, but you get a wee lift whenever you do a Titan glide, basically. Because that's like a jetpack they have.
What I really like about this new, like, expansion, season, whatever, is that you change, like, your ability. So I could see getting into Strand a little bit more. If I maybe fiddle around with abilities and some add-ons on my armor, because I mean that's how I essentially now switched to Solar, because in combination with my gauntlets it's just so overpowered. So I could see myself getting into Strand by using the new advantages of the just new way
of mods, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, there'll be Strand exotics as well, which we've yet to get, so I'm sure there'll be ones which are quite good as well.
But the thing is, and I might just be weird, I kind of need the first interaction to be good. Like, I never minded Solar. I liked Solar in the beginning. I just then absolutely fell in love with Arc.
Yeah.
And now I'm back to Solar. And Strand, I dreaded. And I think you said before that this kind of forces us to use Strand.
Yeah, because I think that's one of the big problems that I have with the campaign, because I mean I didn't mind Strand being like put into it, because I got used to the grapple very quickly, but I've been used to grapples in other games and stuff, and I kind of expected the way it was going to be implemented into Destiny. but they have multiple sections where you basically have to grapple, which I think was a big downfall, because Strand is much more than being able to grapple. Strand has its, melee abilities and the supers and everything, but the one thing it forces you to do is grapple.
But there's no
And
other grenades. Scrapple is essentially grenade, isn't it?
yeah, so there are other grenades you can choose. You can't choose it during the campaign, but once you unlock Strand, you can get other grenades. But they'll replace your grapple. But that's the thing I don't understand. Strand is not just a grappling hook. You can actually replace the grappling hook. So they make a big deal out of having the grapple during the campaign, but then they give you the option to swap it out. Which I think is good, because not everyone's going to want the grapple. And it kind of ruins the thing. It kind of ruins it if it revolves around being a grapple. But at the same time, the campaign revolves around Strand being a grappling hook, essentially.
Because I think that's, I mean, I don't know about stasis as I don't have it, but I think that's something unique to Strand, that you have like this movement thing included. You know?
Well, you are right there, because Strand's big thing is the crystals, like the ice. You've even seen the ice your bow makes. Like, Strand is, or stasis even. Why did they make both darkness things have S? Stasis is all about those crystals and all, like the ice and everything. Your grenades for stasis, one of the grenades, I guess, is similar to how you've got the grappling hook for Strand, because it makes a wall of ice that you can then stand on, or you can defend yourself with and all that. But even during Beyond Light, you weren't forced to use Strand to complete,
Oh, Strand.
Stasis. Why did they do this? I guess, right, so Beyond Light did make you use stasis, because there were sections where you had to use it to kill enemies, but that wasn't put into actual, like, story missions. That was you go to, like, a darkness fragment, and you train yourself with stasis, basically, and you kill a few enemies, and that's it. And then you use it in the final boss fight against Aramis. But at no point in the campaign, from memory, do they make you throw an ice grenade at a wall to traverse like a gap, basically. And that's the equivalent of using a grappling hook in the Lightfall campaign, because there's a few situations where they make you grapple across a bottomless pit, and they never make you.
Like, they put a time on it. Let's see how quickly you grapple, which for me was quite difficult.
The point is, with stasis, they make you use it to complete missions by, like, basically doing platforming, and they don't make you do that with stasis and Beyond Light. Whenever they didn't make us do that, it was perfectly fine. You know the section when we were in sort of like the big open area and we were having to use Strand to kill things, the Vex? Mm-hmm. There was a section where, yeah, that was fun. I enjoyed that because we didn't have to grapple. It was just basically using our supers and, like, using our guns and stuff. Like, the focus wasn't even...
I really enjoy the super that I have. Like, you snap and there's just a bunch of things coming out. The annoying thing is that it's not directed and you can't direct it. So I approached someone, used my super, and I was just still floating. And I somehow messed it up minimally, and so my super just went out to nowhere. It didn't actually attach. And that's something why I don't like my Nova Bomb in Void, exactly, because it sort of forces you to be accurate, and I kind of want my super to not be accurate. I want it to be super, so just use it and it kills some shit. Or how it is with my solar super, to just be good as it is and save my life. But yeah, overall, I like the story behind stasis. So if there's something new on this different planet, try using it. Oh, it's sort of overpowered. You can do some new things with it, but I don't like using it.
Yeah. I like the story behind Strand as well, especially the way, like, when we were using it to begin with, we were, like, going too fast with it and just, like, exhausting ourselves, and then to use it properly we have to rein ourselves in a bit. The next thing we can go on to is the general theme. What do you think the general feeling was throughout the whole thing?
It felt a bit condensed. A lot happened, and I don't think, like, a lot of story in not a lot of time.
Yeah.
I like Neomuna. I mean, the story with Neomuna, I don't quite understand. Like, I think they could have elaborated more on the Cloud arc, because that just feels very much like
Yeah,
the Matrix.
it essentially is.
And like, I even missed, because I think I was talking to you at that point. I even missed the small comment Nimbus made in the beginning when they mentioned, "Oh yeah, we're all in the Cloud arc," and I think they could have elaborated on that more. But the general story I like. I enjoy Neomuna. I kind of thought the transition between Rohan and Nimbus was a bit weird. Because it felt like Nimbus was more like inexperienced than they actually were in the end. Like, it sounded as if they were still in the middle of training, but then on other comments it was like, oh yeah, by the time he complimented me or told me well done, I no longer needed it. So technically they were already complete with the training. But
Yeah.
it just seemed so much in the beginning as if, this is just the apprentice. But in general, I like the story. Could have been elaborated more. That's essentially
Yeah.
my opinion.
I think with my issue with Nimbus, and well, okay, before we get on to that, because I actually have that written down as a separate thing, I do agree that it felt very condensed, that there was a lot of information, like especially with like the Cloud Arc and everything, because the only reason I know that they've only been uploaded into the Cloud Arc since basically Season of Arrivals, which was like 2-3 years ago, and not for like hundreds of years, is because I read it somewhere. It's not because I actually got told it in game. So I think they really should have said that in the campaign if they didn't. There's a chance they did and I missed it, but I don't think you knew that either. So I would say it's more a case of they didn't say it as opposed to us missing it. I think the theme of the campaign got very or the expansion was very misleading if you listen to all of the marketing material, because the marketing material hyped it up a lot and made it seem like this massive big thing, whereas in reality the original marketing stuff was like the beginning of our end, which to me always seemed like it was not going to have a proper big conclusion to it. It was going to just set off a series of events, and that's exactly what it did. And it's also called Lightfall, which to me thought we were going to lose in some way, and we did. So, to me, I mean, I know you didn't really watch any like the trailers and all that much, but to me, it didn't really seem misleading. If you watched the actual later trailers, yes, 100% it was. But the initial sort of stuff was like, I was under the impression it was going to be what it was, and it was, so I didn't really care. With the Cloudstriders, I don't think they should have killed off Rohan that quickly.
Yeah.
I think he should have died maybe in a season or something, because it was kind of like they mentioned, like Rohan mentioned very early on that he was coming to the end of his like 10 years as a Cloudstrider and he was going to be dying soon basically. And I think Nimbus said that no Cloudstrider's ever gone before their time was up basically. It might have been said after Rohan died. It seemed a bit too obvious to be like, this guy is going to die at some stage, and then he dies immediately. And my first thought upon hearing that come out of Rohan's mouth was, it's Bungie. How are they going to actually kill this guy within his like tenure? Because they have a very good... They are very prone to like, here is somebody who's slowly being turned into a Vex or is slowly dying, and 3 years later nothing happens to them. So my first thought was like, how are they actually going to go about doing this? Because at first I was very skeptical. I was like, they're not going to do anything. Then they killed the guy straight up, and I was then like, yeah, that's the only way they would be capable of doing this. I think realistically what they should have done is they should have kept Rohan in that wee area with Osiris. Not really given him a job, just kind of been there. I mean, Osiris doesn't have a job anymore. He's not the vendor for this planet. He just stands there. Rohan should have been the exact same. And then in a season down the line...
He sacrifices himself for Nimbus.
Exactly. Rohan also felt like way too much of like a fleshed out character for him just to be immediately killed.
Also, what I find so weird about those Cloudstriders is they're the like conscious ones defending the city, whatever. But then they're not actually. Like there's just two people. Most of the time, like one apprentice, one actual person. So when is Nimbus gonna get the apprentice? But I just think it's a bit unrealistic that there's just two Cloudstriders. When it comes to like then the extended story, which was more in the missions, obviously. I obviously haven't had Kydal and
Oh, Callus.
yeah. I obviously didn't have much interaction with them before. But I just thought, you know, apparently they were this massive part, but then like Kalos just didn't seem that important. He just constantly had these conversations, ah yeah, we're just trying to get to the Vale, we're just trying to get to the Vale, we're just trying to get to the Vale. Like that was very simplistic as well, but I did actually kind of like it because the focus was on so many things. I kind of thought Kydal dies. Like that's a feeling I got very early on, that she's gonna die and take her dad with her.
I think Callus could have been shown to be a bit more like, he could have had a wee bit more of a presence, because a lot of it just felt like run here, kill people, run here, kill people. Callus showed up twice, I think, at the very, very end, and whenever he was the big head inside of his ship, and then in cutscenes. Which, I mean, in fairness, Destiny's never done a good job with that. I think Aramis only ever showed up at the very, very end of the campaign. Savathun had a good presence. So, having said, yeah, Savathun was quite well portrayed, but I think Callus had a good end to him after the entire thing he's had during, like, Destiny 2. I think he had a good end, and the boss fight was difficult. I think it would even have been difficult on normal. I didn't play it in normal, but I think it was a pretty good boss fight in that regard. It's somewhat fitting that this thing, which has been all about seeing the end of the universe and living in, like, luxury and all this stuff, finally got the power that he wanted and died very, very soon after. And was basically used as a pawn.
His story, I think, was good
Yeah.
from what I witnessed. You mentioned his fight, so do we want to switch over to talking about
Yes,
fighting?
indeed.
So you said you liked that his like death was so difficult, and I get that now, especially after you said it. From a fighting point of view, he was such an important person. He was so like essential for everything. There were so many storylines about him. He needed to have an epic death. And yes, we did play it on Legendary, which made everything more complicated. But the thing is, I played a couple of things in Legendary now, and I'm used to getting frustrated. I'm used to dying like 5 times. But we died like 20 times. And almost in every single bigger fight. And when we joined Kydal with the the tanks and the what are the bad guys we really hate with the purple power?
Tormentors?
Yeah. I mean, we already died like 20 times doing that, and that was really difficult and really frustrating. And then you move on to that last fight of Callus, and we even stopped it after playing it after dying too many times. I think 10 to 20 times.
Yeah.
And played it again the next day or a couple days later, and it still took us ages to finish. And I think it was just too much to be enjoyable, because that fight had to be difficult. That fight had to be frustrating. And I was expecting it to be more difficult than anything else, but it was difficult to a point when it was no longer enjoyable. And I feel like a lot of the gameplay, partially due to Strand, partially due to just the general difficulty, was just too much.
I think I said it a few times during our playthrough, was that because I played the first few missions on normal, after either before or after having played them on Legend with you, and on normal difficulty, Classic I think it's called, it was just too easy. There just weren't enough enemies. They also died really quick. And it just didn't feel satisfying. Like, it didn't feel like a good experience after having played Legend and stuff. And after having played content like Battlegrounds, where they actually have loads of enemies, it didn't feel very good. But then Legend is just really difficult. And there were sections where Legend was really good. I think it just fell apart whenever it fell apart usually whenever the respawning was restricted. But there was even a good few sections of that where that was perfectly fine. I think like per mission there was at least 2, maybe 3 areas where respawning was restricted. And we only had issues with like the boss fights basically.
Yeah.
So
I think if even on Legend, you know, if everything would have been difficult but then doable, apart from that one last fight with Kalos being the way it was, I think that would have been kind of like epic. Because then the most of it would have been doable, enjoyable, fun, and then Kalos would have been like this big, massive thing where like, boah. Because he would have deserved that, and that way I was just annoyed.
I think Legend was too difficult. We made sure we were the right light level for all of the content, so it wasn't like we were underpowered. A lot of the sections, in fairness, I think a lot of it was due to being just rammed into using Strand. In the final boss fight, I'm fairly sure Strand was doing more damage to Kalos than any other like element.
Yeah, but
Can't
I
really
ended up
verify that,
finishing
but I felt like it.
in Solar because I just couldn't do Strand because I constantly killed myself with Strand. I constantly tried to grapple on to flee and then just missed it by a tiny bit and then was shot off.
Yeah. But there was that other boss fight. So the tank one, from memory, the one with Keitel, we did have to do it quite a few times, but it wasn't horrendous. The one, the two, yeah, the two that were horrendous were Callus and then the one where we were destroying the relay. I think in both of them we had to use. Did we? No. Yeah, I think we had to use Strand in both of those, didn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that mission was bad for other reasons as well. Not even the mission, it was just the boss fight. Because there were so many enemies and then the 2 tanks spawned in. And then at the very end, whenever you got exhausted, if one person went over to the thing, both people got exhausted, so then only one person could really see the cutscene.
Yeah, I could not see the cutscene. That was so disappointing. I did not see Rohan die because I could not, where I was pushed by the war beasts, I couldn't get out.
Yep.
And I think that's not okay. In no position should you be in the case, like in the situation that you can't actually finish it.
Yeah, because it doesn't even matter where you would have been in that case, because if you had been just on that platform normally, the only thing you would have been able to do is drop down and slowly crawl towards where he was. And, like, that's not a good experience either. Like, obviously their intention was for everyone to be on that platform, but realistically only one person had to. Overall, though, like, the first mission, that was really good. I think that was one of the best missions in the campaign. The tank mission was also really, really good. I think they could have maybe used Tormentors a bit more. But, well, I mean, think about how many times Tormentors actually showed up during the campaign.
Yeah, I hated them, but they were good.
Yeah, like, they were well designed. They had really good attacks. I think one thing that really annoyed me with Tormentors during, especially Legendary, because it's not that big a deal if you're just playing normal, was that they can actually disable your super whilst you're using it. I had that happen multiple times.
I hated the one that grabbed you and killed you because my resilience is at 100 because I just die too easily, so that's what I focus on. But with you, who I think your resilience you said was at 70 or 80.
Yep.
And it grabbed you. It took forever. You couldn't do anything to escape, at least not to our knowledge, and you just died.
Yep.
And it was always in a non-revival zone. And
yeah,
that was always like, okay, he got you, now we have to wait a minute until we can actually redo anything.
Yeah, and that happened multiple times in the Callus fight.
Yeah.
There was good variety in the missions. I think they had quite good variety. I mean, we were on Callus's ship for one of the missions. The fight for that was quite well designed. I don't think we had to replay that too much whenever we first discovered the relay, that fight. The one thing we did have to replay there was escaping on our Sparrows, because on Legend your Sparrow just gets obliterated. Like, playing the game normally, your Sparrow gets obliterated, but on Legend it just evaporates.
But that was fun. It was annoying, but I actually really enjoyed the like, there were a couple of things where it was very much Sparrow focused, and I really like that because I didn't have it before.
Yeah. I think the mission variety was good. On Legend, I think they just missed the mark a few times with how difficult it was.
There's a thin line between frustrating and enjoying, and frustrating and no longer bringing joy.
That was pretty much it, to be honest. The last thing I had was Atmosphere.
I liked it. Atmosphere
You
is
liked
a
it?
pro. Yeah, because it was... I mean, if you think about the people we interact, it's obviously Nimbus. Nimbus takes everything with like joy, which I think was a big advantage because that was just missing from the expansion. And I like Neo Muna, and I like the colors it brings in.
Oh.
And it was like sometimes funny. There were a lot of different aspects about it. So overall, I think atmosphere was good.
I think the atmosphere was good until Rohan died, essentially, because I think the campaign would have been way too serious and like dark almost without Nimbus. But as soon as it was basically just Nimbus and then Osiris, it turned into being way too lighthearted for what it is in sections. I mean, look at the ending cutscene where there's Callus has just died. Keitel has this like, you know, you can feel the weight that Keitel has on her after just seeing her dad dead, even if he was like a bad person now. And then Nimbus zooms in and gives us a fist bump.
Nimbus, I don't like Nimbus as a character. I think I find the voice really weird. I don't like how, I mean, Osiris said, oh yeah, sometimes you just have to get over pain, but I mean, apparently Nimbus and Rohan were like really close, and then Rohan is dead and Nimbus is just like upset for a moment and it's just party. So I don't like Nimbus as a character. So I get what you mean with, like, I overall thought that the joy and like the easiness Nimbus brought in was nice, but thinking about it, I do see that it may have been a little bit too easy going, like atmosphere-wise.
I agree with it up until when Rohan died, because that meant that one of the seriousness, you know, tones left. Because Nimbus and Rohan balanced themselves out, I think. Like, they balance each other out.
Which is why I originally thought that Nimbus isn't that trained yet, because Nimbus just seemed like this easygoing apprentice.
Yeah. That's the impression I got to begin with, to be honest, as well. I mean, one thing which I think goes without saying is that Neo Muna looks amazing.
Yeah.
The music is also amazing, as per usual. So, two things Bungie will never ever have an issue with is designing
Don't say
locations. They won't. They never will. I will stand by this. They will never ever have a problem with designing a location.
Here first. Redstone Melon is the one jinxing it.
Even Mercury, which was tiny, looked incredible. You know what? I know how we should end this video. You may not like it, but you're gonna have to. What is your rating out of 10?
Why do you think I won't like that?
I don't know. I just like giving arbitrary numbers towards things.
I mean, the problem with my situation right now is indeed I have never done this before, so I can't really compare it. I think when you give a rating out of 10, you need to have a comparison as a number 10.
Compare everything you have experienced with Lightfall so far. All of that to like the quality of what you experienced during Season of the Seraph and Season of the Plunder.
Season of Plunder was shit.
Yeah.
6.5.
I think that's fair.
That's the thing. So I didn't like that at all. So I would have given that maybe a 3. Seraph probably an 8 or 9. So I think probably Seraph was probably an 8.5. So Lightfall, as the first expansion I've witnessed, a 6.5. It maybe will later on upgrade to a 7 if I experience future expansions, but for now it's gonna be a 6.5. What about you?
I think I think I would give it a cautious 7. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please consider leaving a like, maybe even subscribing. And I shall see
Maybe
you.
if he gets, how much is the next? 900? If he gets
Yeah.
900 subscribers by mid-June, maybe I'm gonna give you another chance at a cake.
Oh, that'd be nice.
I make good cakes. I make really good cakes.
You do.
So
Yes, I will have to put out more videos to get 900 subscribers. Anyway, bye bye.
goodbye.